Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the MechaWill Show. Today we're going to be talking about Civil War, Marvel's Captain America trace.
Sorry, Tony. You know I wouldn't do this if I had any other choice. But he's my friend. So was I.
I love the movie. I'm going to start off by saying that. Also, before we get into this is going to be a very spoiler-filled discussion, so if you haven't seen the film, or if you care about the spoilers, obviously you can still watch my video and then go see the movie. I'm not going to say no to that if you want to sit down and give it a whirl. But we'll start off with kind of the basic stuff that I really appreciated about the movie. At this point, Marvel has pretty much got their character chemistry down, and that's the thing that most of us, I think, go to these movies to enjoy, especially when you go to like something like an Avengers with an ensemble cast that has all of the goodies in, all of the good actors, and all the stuff that we've already built up. They've taken a long time to build up the backstories of all their characters. Every single one of them's got their own movie, except for like Scarlet Witch and stuff like that, which it's cool because it gives us, that grounding that DC lacked a little bit. Obviously they're trying to work on that too, but having all those like anchors to like kind of pull from, with previous consumer knowledge about, it really helps these titles succeed. And succeed, I think this film is going to do. I can't imagine it's going to do anything but smashing numbers at the box office. It's got everything that it needs. Well, it's actually lacking on the romance end, which is okay. Sometimes I like a little romance in there, but as far as superhero stuff go, it's not. We're good. The best thing I want to say about this is that beyond his character chemistry, and of course the actors are phenomenal. Everybody that they picked pretty much nails their role. It nails all its beats story-wise. It makes me feel things. There's definitely some times during the film where, and I only get this a couple of times, where when I'm watching movies in general, where like I'm watching the film and stuff's happening or whatever, and then I just take like a small second to introvertedly look at myself, and I realize I've got like the biggest smile on my face, and I don't know how long I've had it there, but my face kind of hurts, so it feels like it's been there for a while. And there's a couple of moments in this film where that kind of happened. Now a lot of people are going to be talking about the big wild card of the film, which was Spider-Man. Spider-Man was awesome. Not like incredible. I'm gonna like slightly disagree with a lot of the people at that were like, oh man, Spider-Man is the greatest thing that ever happened in this film. Spider-Man was like the show stealer. He was the killer. He was. I like the actor. I like the delivery. I like the way that he's kind of like phrasing this character. I don't mind his age. I thought that I would, but going back to younger Spider-Man, in the midst of all of these like seasoned heroes, it's kind of fun for them to kind of push and pull on like, hey, you're kind of a kid compared to the rest of us. When he came on screen on the first time, it shows him as Peter Parker, and I get that it's supposed to be kind of this moment where like Marvel just kind of like runs over and like in a pleasurable way kicks you in the balls, and you kind of like go like, whoa, okay, all right, that's Spider-Man, didn't see that coming. And it was cool. It was kind of that mic dropping moment, but really wasn't. It's kind of what I want to say. It's not like the character is cool. The powers are there. The CGI is there. His interactions with the other characters are there. Sometimes the delivery was a little bit off. And as far as like chemistry goes, a couple of his jokes fell flat. Like Spider-Man's always supposed to be a jokey kind of character. That's kind of his whole shtick. And a lot of his quips are kind of what make the character. So obviously, in this film, Marvel felt like they had to put in a lot of these quips. Pretty much every line that the kid had during the fight was a quip. And a lot of them were great. Some of them were not so. And I guess I wish I'd seen maybe a little bit more substance on the dramatic end. But it's Spider-Man and it's Marvel, so I don't know why I would expect something like that. But, to basically tie it in with the rest of it, Spider-Man made a lovely addition to the whole crew. Obviously, the premise of Civil War is, you've got Captain America and you've got Iron Man and, the other members of the Avengers taking sides between the two in a big rupture battle, and it's over Bucky and a certain treaty that Stark wanted to sign to kind of keep the Avengers, under check, with the government because of all the damage that had been happening, whereas the Captain believes that they should be able to do their good work freely. And it was all pulled off well. All the acts blended in super well to each other. There's a couple of moments where I was like, fuck yeah. It's specifically some of the stunts. There's this one part where Bucky, they're in this fighting away from the government and the SWAT teams and stuff like that, and it kind of slows down a little bit while Bucky like does this little jump around and like pushes this guy out of a motorcycle, and in midair like flips around and grabs onto the motorcycle and then drops as the wheels touch the ground and continues onward. And a very integral part of that scene brings me on to my next character that I want to discuss. As far as jaw-dropping characters go, Spider-Man doesn't take the #1 spot for me. Black Panther does. Black Panther was freaking awesome in this movie. The only thing I slightly disliked was that every time he dropped in there, it had to have this little like pan flute whistle, like doo-doo-doo. Like it just seemed a little bit out of place as far as like sound cues go. I get what they were going for, but once you notice it once, you like notice it every time he comes in. But Black Panther was awesome. Freaking love his fighting style. I love the scenes that he was in. He's in, he's a decent amount. I'm glad they put him in a gratuitous amount and didn't leave him as like the biggest side character. He is still a side character, but he's awesome. And so the end credits sequence is going to show maybe a little bit more. Obviously, we're going to be waiting on some more of Black Panther. He's definitely going to pop up later on. I personally have not seen Ant-Man. This was my very first introduction to Paul Rudd's Ant-Man character, and I liked it a lot. He just seems to kind of fit that role super well, and he seems to kind of deliver those quips that he needs to. Again, like Spider-Man, a couple of them fell flat. I feel like that's the kind of the whole song and dance of this, and specifically like Marvel's direction as a company with their whole, let's make these films, fun and funny, and have those moments. One of the funniest moments in the freaking film is where Captain is talking to his little romantic interest in the film, and Falcon Man and Bucky are sitting in the car together, and basically Bucky tells the Falcon to like move his chair up, and then Falcon's just like no, and you wouldn't think that it would be that funny, but it was a really funny kind of situation. I kind of cracked up laughing at that, and also when Roger went in for the kiss, they also got that they had that like bro moment with the two guys in the car, and those are the kind of touches that I appreciate Marvel for. Now I'm not the hugest like Marvel fan. I really appreciate and love all their characters. If I had to pick a side, which you don't have to, but I've read way more DC comics. I'm like way more of a into a lot of the DC characters, and I just I want to give my praises to Marvel for like engineering these moments where it's like you didn't have to, this adds nothing to the plot, but it was a good giggle, and it kind of like, I don't know, just helped everything kind of flow better. So those are my praises. I mean, it's awesome. Marvel always has some like pretty badass fight scenes. Obviously the big fight scene with the Avengers is awesome. It's hands down one of the coolest battle scenes I've ever seen. It's got, pretty much everything you need between the characters. Everybody's fighting each other, and it's so cool. Ant-Man pops out with his, freaking larger than life ability, and he just like throws it and says, oh, I thought that was a water truck, instead of a fire truck. Ha! That was one of the times where I like introspectively looked at myself, and I could just feel like a really big smile, and I'm like, why am I smiling so much? Oh yeah, because I'm enjoying this. Me personally, throughout the film, like 100%, I was rooting for Captain America and Bucky. Obviously, Robert Downey Jr. kind of comes off like a dick sometimes. That's his job as his character, and it worked. And it's like, also that's part of the whole plot line too. It's not really about him being a dick, but it is about him being staunch and, like staying in his position. He really believes, because of the things that he's faced, that, the Avengers need to take a step back and look at themselves. And then also, obviously, it comes to the big reveal at the end. Now, before getting into that, I do want to preface all of this with saying I actually haven't read the Civil War comic. I've been discussed the summary and the plots and different like large elements of, and like Wikipedia type stuff of it. So, and I don't want to be one of those guys that like just goes and researches it right before the video to just like kind of pretend, because I haven't read it. That part I didn't know. I imagine that is in the comics. I'm imagining this follows it pretty down to a T. But that ending part where the Russian bad guy that is taking them along and figuring out these things, and you're following him around, and you think, he's trying to activate, these other super soldiers, the super soldier project that created, Captain Rogers and Bucky and all that kind of stuff is still alive and well if you find all the secret parts and whatnot. So he's been trying to put all these pieces together and figure out, and apparently there are all these other experiments. So you think throughout the whole film that it's going to be about, getting to these, people so the bad guy can wreak havoc with extra, winter soldiers. But at the end, it turns out, he freaking slaughtered all of them, and he only wants, to create and sow discord between the ranks of the Avengers and watch them tear themselves apart because of what they did back in the Age of Ultron when they destroyed and killed his family on accident. Now, I also want to, that's a super interesting thing that for them to tackle in this film. I mean, it's not interesting. I don't mean that as a negative. It's really not interesting. It's oh, how can all this stuff happen and you haven't killed people? Or, wow, you destroyed a city and it's all like happy-go-lucky at the end. You probably killed thousands of people. So in this movie, the Avengers are made to deal with that. I think that's, it's important for them to kind of touch as a topic. Like I said, I don't think it's super interesting. I think that's pretty predictable as far as plot lines go. And then crazy revealing about it, they just realize that they have to like check themselves. There's been some catastrophes, and that causes different catastrophes and stuff like that, and Vision said it way better than I just did. So go see the movie if you want better stuff. I really thoroughly enjoyed the movie. That's right, at the end, basically, you figure out Bucky, when he was in his super soldier kind of mindset, being mind controlled by Hydra, was the guy that killed Stark's parents. Like I said, I hadn't read the comics, so that was like a big reveal for me, and I was shocked at the end. The movie just came out, so I hadn't been spoiled on anything, except for knowing some of the plot points already. And watching that scene was something that was just like, no, like while it was happening, it was, you saw the footage playing, and Stark was like, I've seen that road before, and you have too, because the movie does a really clever thing where they show you the same scene like over and over again, and you're wondering why they keep coming back to this scene. Like, it has to be important, but they don't really tell you why. And you kind of forget about it until they show it to you again, and you're like, oh yeah, you're reminding me, yeah, this happened. And they just show part of it, and then they stop it and move to something else, and it's like, okay, it's in your head, but it's not really in your head. And when it comes to the end, it's shown in a different angle than they've shown it, all the previous times before, as far as the camera work goes. And so you're not like quite sure you're seeing exactly what you're seeing before until you see, this action happen where the car hits the tree, and you're like, this is the same. Oh, and you're like, yeah, I get it. Wait, stop the video. And in that moment of tension, that moment of tension where you see Bucky just beating the shit out of Tony's dad, and Tony just like looks over at Bucky because they came in together as friends, and he's just like staring at him for like a small minute, and Bucky just kind of like turns aside, and Captain America is just like, oh shit. But none of them stop, none of them move, and they just watch the end of the video, and then Bucky like kills Tony's mom. It's so beautifully done. It's just the tension build up in that moment, and then at the end of the film, after everything is gone, and Bucky like clearly like walks up to show his face, like, hey, it was me that did it, just in case there's any confusion. Like, Tony just goes and just like starts to freaking murder Bucky, and Captain like just like stops him because he knew it was gonna happen. Like, there's that tension there, and then there's like one line, and Captain says something like, hey, this wasn't him, and Captain and like Tony's like, he killed my mom, or I don't care. So he says one of those things. He just like has his head and he just punches the shit out of Captain America. That moment was just filled me with so much dread and so much like tension, and not knowing that was amazing for me to see. That was definitely the high point. Obviously, it's the climax of the film, but like seeing that drop was like, oh my god. So we've got a film that has really great build-up, really great, awesome, fight scenes, great character chemistry. Obviously, they give a little bit of time to everybody, which is I like. I like they're bringing a lot of characters, like Jeremy Renner's character. and they have Scarlet Witch going, which I always want to see more of. When I saw her in Ultron, I was like, more, please, which is cool. And having Stark admit his mistakes from the last film, and having the Avengers sort of admit their mistakes from the previous couple films, and all of it was like really well done. The only thing that I have an issue with, Marvel tends to like really like those like long drawn out fight scenes. I'm probably in the minority for this, by the way. But like every like 10 minutes of screen time, there is some like really long drawn out like hand-to-hand fight scene battle, and lots of or some sort of like tension, like a chase, or like a car chase, or an explosion or something like that. And whenever they do the chases, I remember they've been doing this with Scarlett Johansson, like they do this with Black Widow a lot. The camera just like gets all shaky while she's like running and then like doing all sorts of stuff. And I thought to myself, why would they do that? And then I realized if I visualized that scene without the camera shake, it'd be boring as hell. It'd just be watching like a lady go nee, 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 nee. That's it. But this way it's like exciting. That's really my only downside to this film. I think it had a great running length. I'm a huge fan of like when films like take the time. You don't need it to be long to have a good film. That's not a correlation I want to draw, but I do want to say longer films, in my opinion, because it's, the director and the writers, they're like actively spending more time and more money and more than they have to get something out, which to me shows a sort of emphasis on value. Like they know what they're trying to make. They have a vision, at least they have a vision of it, and so with the longer films, I really just feel like they take the time, and pacing is normally done a lot better in longer films. Like a lot of the times, some directors will just cut a movie short to meet a quota or to make a certain bill, or don't want to like, we're over budget, let's not finish that, and they rush things and cramp things and yada yada. I just find a lot of the time, it really feels like Marvel respected this franchise as they have with the rest of their franchises. So I'm glad that they did that. I think it was a perfect running time. There was a lack of any romances is something that I kind of started off with, which is fine. There's not really a ton of need for romance. One of the major downsides for Age of Ultron for me was that like really kind of forced like Hulk Black Widow romance, which it just kind of threw me off. It just seemed unnecessary, and I feel like they kind of learned their lesson in this. There is one kiss in the entire film, and it's not even that long, and it's got a funny joke after it, and it's like not even that serious. We got to see, Rogers deal with some serious things, and the scenes from the trailer where you've got Rogers and Bucky like beating Captain America. It is exactly as badass as it looked in that film, and that battle at the end with those three is very like heart-wrenching, and it's a really good fight. And then it ends off amazingly, and it gives you two little teasers at the end. Obviously we're seeing more of Spider-Man, we're seeing more of Black Panther. That's pretty much what the teasers were about. Gosh, I don't know what to say. As somebody who hasn't read the Civil War comics, this movie was great. It did everything that it needed to. There were really no flaws, except for there was a lot of, not a lot of, but a good amount of flat jokes. And I don't feel like it's because I don't have a good sense of humor. It's just, I just feel like a lot of the quips fell flat. Spider-Man, a couple of his quips fell flat. Just like everything's quippy. It's like you kind of expected at this point with Marvel films where, something happens, something dramatic, or something like explosion happens or something, and then there's that small bit of silence after it happens. And then normally most films will leave that silence and then cut to another shot or fade to black or something. But Marvel movies always like have that silence, and like that's that prime comedic timing. If if you're into comedy at all, hey, that's like, well, what am I gonna, it's like you leave that little pause so people are like, this is kind of awkward, and then you say something to relieve the tension, which is why people start laughing. It like entices them to laugh even more, because it's like, well, this was awkward, and now you said, and whatever. It's prime comedic timing, and they use it a lot like that. It's just like they use it for quips, and sometimes the quips fall flat, and when it does, since it's in that space of time where it's like slightly awkward for the audience to sit there with nothing happening, and then like a kind of bad joke pops on, it's still kind of awkward after that, and then it moves on to the next scene and you forget about it. But it just happened to like more so in this film, I think, than the first one. This happened a lot in Age of Ultron too, now that I'm recalling. They're trying to put in the jokes, and I'm glad that they are, because when they're funny, they're funny. but when they're not, it's just like just a little flat. And I just found that at a couple of points throughout the film. I don't think the film was ever slow. I think, the whole reason for them having to put, like, action, just 100%, like, every 5-10 minutes there's action. Somebody's running somewhere or kicking down a door somewhere or beating the shit out of, like, 20 SWAT team cops. They do that because they don't want to, like, lose audience attention. And, they serve, like, age ranges, like, 5 to 50. So, as a majority. So everybody kind of wants to keep involved in watching. But that to me is also probably a negative. I prefer more of like, dialogue and intense character discussions and like, it shows a lot more actor versatility to me. I want to see the actors like flex their acting muscles rather than the CGI guy, do some cool explosions all the time. And just leave, kind of the big stuff, at the end and some good fight scenes in there. But they do that for a reason, just so it moves everything along. Every movie has something that's supposed to move it along, which is what helps with the pacing. You pace it right with all these, like recurring things that the audience is comfortable with. And in this case, the audience is super comfortable with the action that Marvel has been able to provide. So they move it along by just constantly keeping you action. I mean, you're always in it, and the action moves you to different places. It's a really interesting way for them to get from one location to another location. Oh, we need Black Widow here and here. Well, let's do a car chase scene where they're in like, whatever. It's not like it's a huge kick to the movie, but my only downside is some of the flatness of the jokes. Spider-Man is amazing, but not the greatest reveal. I think Black Panther was cooler than Spider-Man. And yeah, and just the constant action sometimes just throws me off a little bit. But beyond that, it's got some and to be fair, when they do action right, they get it right. Specifically, the scene with the Avengers and the scene at the end with Rogers, Bucky, and Iron Man. I mean, it hits me like a Revenge of this, like the freaking Return of the Jedi fight, at the end with the Emperor Vader and Luke. Like that, it's that kind of like, this is happening right now, especially after that moment, which was by far my favorite moment in any Marvel movie, when it just clicks for the viewer and it clicks for Stark and it clicks for Bucky and it clicks for Captain America all at the same fucking time, where you're watching this video and you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, no, and you see, and just watching the reactions, like the actors nailed it. Oh, and the last thing I want to talk about with this film is the score is beautiful. It's nailed. I'm not like a huge fan of the composer that made it. He does a good job, but it's, to me, there's nothing that really kind of makes it his own. I don't want to say it's generic. It's a good soundtrack. It's just very like, it's exactly what you would expect, Music to me is really important in movies, and there was nothing good nor nothing bad about the soundtrack. It hit the high points when it needed to, did the low points when it needed to. It just didn't have like a flair that I miss. But it was not bad at all. And I'm glad it was where it was. Anyway, these are my thoughts. I don't know what you guys thought. The stunts were just freaking crazy this time. I loved, the little truck thing where Ant-Man, like, I gotta go see Ant-Man. That's my problem. They brought in really nice characters. They gave everybody screen time. The character actions dialogue was really witty. The directing was, of course, superb. Like, all the shots taken were awesome. Even, when you get into those intimate character-to-character shots, which I liked, it was all done well. Lighting was pretty awesome. It was bright and colorful like you'd expect a Marvel movie to be. And that's what it was. It was just cheerful, and like I said, I just found myself like really smiling hardcore at random parts. Like when Spider-Man came in, I looked at myself and I'm like, dude, you're smiling the shit out of this movie theater right now. You're like, it's Spider-Man. It's finally Spider-Man. If I had to say one more thing, seeing the Uncharted 4 trailer before the movie on a big screen, that was cool as shit as well. But that's neither here nor there, especially in a Civil War discussion video. Anyway, thank you guys for dropping by and listening to my discussion and I guess pseudo review of Batman Civil War. If I had to give this movie a score, Captain America Civil War, I'm going to keep it, around a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10. Just because everything kind of worked for it, and it was really interesting and fun to see all those characters on screen. If that says what it says, hopefully you guys go out and watch it. I highly recommend that you do. Go grab some tickets. It's out now, and I I don't think you guys will be disappointed. You'll definitely be happy throughout. But those are my thoughts and opinions on it. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave that in the comment section below. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. It helps small YouTubers like me a lot. And definitely, if you want more content, you know, think about subscribing, joining the mech army. We're getting bigger, and we'll only grow larger. So hopefully you guys will drop on by later on. I hope that you do, and I hope that I see you guys next show.